coming. I'm going to show you how to make some late 90s tech step bass like you'd hear in a Rush Optical type song. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing you need is a sound source or a sample. And we're going to design our own sound here in Nexus 5. You can do this in any VST. And the idea here is we want to get a nice analog type sound with some movement in it. So this is the patch I've designed in Nexus. And what you're going to see is after we design the sound and we chuck it in a sampler, some really interesting things happen to the feel of that sound. So keep watching here for when we get to the sampler part, because it's a really crucial step here. Now, what we're going to do in Nexus is we're going to go ahead and reset to an init patch. And then what I'm going to do is come into my layer here, and we're going to make sure we're in virtual analog mode. And under oscillators, we're going to go to saw square. And then to get movement in this, we want some movement in the sample sound. We're going to come in and we're going to use LFO1 and have LFO1 modulate the pulse width modulation right here. And we're just going to crank that up to 127, and this is what we get. Already very tech steppy there. And so we're getting some movement baked into the sound here. And so what I'm going to do now is create another oscillator here and stack both up. Just gives us a bigger, fatter sound here. Now, in terms of the effects on here, you can keep them on, you can turn them off. I mean, Nexus 5 does have like a very modern sounding effects on it, so kind of personal preference. Let's go ahead and turn the delay and reverb off here. So ultimately, this is our patch here. It's very simple. 2 saw square waves stacked up, and we're modulating the PWM using an LFO, which gives us that movement. So the next thing we want to do is bounce that down to audio, and you're going to pull up the sampler in your DAW, and you're going to drag and drop just a single note that you hold out into the sample. And so I created 2 different variations of this bass, both ways mangling the sample differently. But if we play the sample here at the original pitch, that's the original pitch on C3. Now listen to what happens if I play lower on my keyboard. So what you get in a sampler, when you sample a single note, I've done tons of videos about this. As you play away from the root note, the sample is going to pitch in a very characteristic way, but what's also going to follow that pitch are the different movements you have in the sound source. So the modulation of that PWM, we can hear if we play lower, it's very slow. If we play pitched up, it's very fast. And that's like that energy of tech step where you're playing bass notes and that modulation is and it's kind of going all over the place. So that is ultimately why we throw it into a sampler here. The next thing we did in the sampler, we put it in mono here and then sent it through a chorus. That chorus, I think, makes a huge difference. If I turn chorus off, turn it on. Nice thick sound, bit of a compressor on there just to tame the dynamics because the sound is a bit all over the place. In the sampler on this example here, I have no filter, but what I do think is very important is to set it to play in legato with a little bit of glide. And so that gives you that glide as you play different notes. And ultimately, that's what you get. Now, I took the same sample and put it in another sampler here just to show you another way you could mangle up the sound. So on this one, I'm actually using a notch filter here and then a bunch of resonance on there, and I've looped the sample up so I can hold out a long note. If I turn the filter off, So different tonal characteristic to it. And then I also pitched the sample up and I'm modulating that filter using this ADSR envelope here. So we have the movement in the sample, then I'm using this notch filter and on the attack sweeping down, right, to just introduce some additional movement. And that's ultimately what we get here. Through a big chorus, through a compressor to tame it a little bit, and then that's what you get. And that, to me, is that classic sound. When you're playing these low notes and then you glide up to a high note and that modulation goes from like a nice, slow, steady sound to very quickly, like you're hitting the rev limiter in your BMW M2 on the Autobahn. That's like the energy to me. And so ultimately that is how you can create a tech steppy bass. To recap, what you need to do is design a sound in any synth of your choice, sawtooth, square wave, something with a lot of harmonics in it. You're gonna sample that, throw it into a sampler, mangle it up, send it through a chorus, put some glide and legato on there, and then you're off to the races. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a good one.